The Grand Plaza Hotel stood tall and proud in the heart of downtown, its gleaming glass exterior reflecting the morning sun. It was known as the most prestigious hotel in the city, catering to wealthy businesspeople and celebrities from around the world. The lobby sparkled with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and plush furniture that screamed luxury. Anthony Johnson walked through the revolving doors of the Grand Plaza Hotel wearing a simple gray hoodie, jeans, and comfortable sneakers. His beard was slightly unkempt, and he carried a worn backpack over one shoulder. He had been traveling for 18 hours straight, flying in from Singapore after finalizing a major business deal. All he wanted was to check in, take a hot shower, and collapse into bed. What Anthony didn't mention to anyone was that 3 months ago, his company had acquired the Grand Plaza Hotel chain in a quiet business deal. As the CEO of Vision Enterprises, a global investment firm worth billions, Anthony had a habit of visiting his new acquisitions unannounced. He believed in experiencing things as a regular customer first, before revealing his identity. The lobby was busy that morning. Business travelers hurried about with their rolling suitcases, and a tour group was gathering near the entrance. Anthony approached the front desk where a receptionist named Vanessa was typing rapidly on her computer. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore the hotel's standard uniform with a name tag pinned perfectly in place. "Good morning," Anthony said with a tired smile. "I'd like to check in, please." Vanessa looked up briefly, her eyes sweeping over Anthony's casual attire and backpack. Her smile faltered. "Do you have a reservation?" she asked, her tone noticeably cooler than the warm greeting she had given the well-dressed businessman minutes before. "Yes, should have a reservation under Johnson," Anthony replied, pulling out his ID and credit card. Vanessa took the cards with her fingertips, as if reluctant to touch them. She typed into her computer, her expression growing increasingly skeptical. "I'm not seeing any reservation under that name," she said, sliding his cards back across the counter. Anthony frowned. "That's strange. I confirmed it yesterday. Could you check again? It might be under Anthony Johnson, or possibly Vision Enterprises." "Sir," Vanessa said, emphasizing the word in a way that felt condescending, "we're fully booked because of the International Trade Conference. There's nothing available, especially not for walk-ins." She glanced meaningfully at his casual clothes. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the Budget Inn down the street? It's more." She paused, suitable for certain travelers. A few people in line behind Anthony shifted uncomfortably. An older woman in a business suit looked embarrassed, while a young couple exchanged concerned glances. Anthony remained calm, though his exhaustion was making it difficult. "I understand you're busy, but I know for a fact that a room was reserved. Could I speak to a manager, please?" Vanessa's smile tightened. "The manager is very busy with important guests right now. And without a confirmed reservation, I'm afraid I can't help you." She raised her voice slightly. "Next guest, please." Anthony didn't move. "I'd really appreciate it if you could check one more time. Perhaps under V Suite?" "Sir," Vanessa said sharply, "I've already checked twice. There is no reservation under your name. This is a 5-star hotel, and we have standards to maintain." Her eyes drifted to the security guard standing nearby. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have guests waiting." The implication was clear. She thought he couldn't afford to stay there and didn't belong in such an establishment. The security guard began walking toward them. At that moment, the hotel's assistant manager, David Chen, emerged from a back office. He was reviewing documents when he glanced up and froze, recognizing Anthony immediately from the company profile he'd studied extensively since the acquisition. "Mr. Johnson!" David exclaimed, rushing forward. "I'm so sorry for the wait. We've been expecting you." Vanessa's expression changed from dismissive to confused. David continued professionally, "Your executive suite is ready, sir." We received your email about arriving early. I apologize for any confusion. He shot a questioning look at Vanessa, who was now staring wide-eyed between them. Thank you, David, Anthony said, reading the assistant manager's name tag. There seems to have been some miscommunication about my reservation. David nodded quickly. Ms. Wilson, please pull up the VE suite reservation immediately. He turned back to Anthony. Mr. Johnson, if you'll allow me, I'd be happy to escort you to your suite personally. Vanessa's hands trembled slightly as she typed. Her face paled when the reservation appeared on her screen, a 2-week stay in the hotel's most expensive suite, with a note indicating the guest was the CEO of Vision Enterprises, their new parent company. I don't understand, she stammered. There was nothing under Johnson. Because it's under V Suite, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, David said quietly but firmly. The reservation notes clearly state that Mr. Johnson is to be given full VIP treatment upon arrival. The lobby had grown quiet. Other employees had noticed the commotion, and a few recognized Anthony from company materials that had been circulated after the acquisition. Vanessa looked mortified. Mr. Johnson, I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding. We would be honored to have you stay with us. Her voice was shaking now, the realization of how she had treated the company's CEO sinking in. Anthony took a deep breath. He was too tired for a scene, but also knew this was exactly why he did these unannounced visits. Thank you, David. I would appreciate being shown to my room now. As David led him toward the private elevator, Anthony heard the whispers spreading through the lobby. He knew that by tomorrow, the story would be all over the hotel, how the receptionist had tried to turn away the CEO because of his casual appearance and race, suggesting he'd be more comfortable elsewhere. This wasn't the first time Anthony had experienced such treatment, even as a successful businessman. But now, he was in a position to address it directly within his own company. Anthony barely slept that night despite his exhaustion. The encounter in the lobby kept replaying in his mind. He'd built his company from nothing, overcoming countless obstacles and discrimination along the way. He thought about all the other people who might have been turned away simply because they didn't look right to someone like Vanessa. The next morning, Anthony showered and dressed in one of his tailored suits. As CEO, he could have immediately fired Vanessa, but that wasn't his style. Vision Enterprises had grown successful because Anthony believed in addressing problems at their root, not just treating symptoms. At 7:30 a.m., he called David Chen, who answered immediately. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. I hope you rested well. Is there anything you need? I'd like to schedule a meeting with the hotel management team at 9 a.m. Also, please ensure that Vanessa from the front desk attends. There was a brief pause. Of course, sir. I'll arrange it immediately. Anthony spent the next hour reviewing the hotel's employee handbook and training materials on his laptop. What he found was concerning, plenty about luxury standards and catering to VIPs, but minimal guidance on treating all guests with equal respect regardless of appearance. At 9 a.m. sharp, Anthony entered the hotel's conference room. Inside waited the hotel's general manager, 3 department heads, David Chen, and a nervous-looking Vanessa. Their expressions ranged from curious to anxious. Good morning, everyone, Anthony began, setting his folder on the table. For those who don't know me, I'm Anthony Johnson, CEO of Vision Enterprises. 3 months ago, we acquired the Grand Plaza hotel chain because we believe in its potential. However, yesterday's experience showed me we have significant work to do. He recounted the lobby incident without embellishment. Vanessa stared at the table, her face flushed with shame. The general manager looked mortified. Sir, on behalf of the entire staff, I deeply apologize, the general manager said. I assure you that Vanessa's actions don't reflect our values, and will take immediate disciplinary. Anthony raised his hand. I'm not here to demand anyone's termination. That solves nothing. What happened yesterday wasn't just about one employee's behavior. It reveals systemic issues in your training and culture. He opened his folder and distributed copies of his findings. Your materials extensively cover how to cater to visibly wealthy guests but say almost nothing about treating everyone with equal dignity. This suggests the problem isn't just one receptionist, it's built into your operational approach. The room was silent. Some managers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Anthony turned to Vanessa, who finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "May I ask what went through your mind when you saw me yesterday?" She hesitated before answering honestly. I thought you couldn't afford to stay here. You didn't look like our usual guests." "And what do your usual guests look like?" "They wear expensive clothes, carry designer luggage. They look important." Anthony nodded. "And did my appearance or race influence your judgment?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I want to say no, but probably yes. I made assumptions I shouldn't have made." "Thank you for your honesty," Anthony said. "That's the first step toward change." He turned back to the group. "Starting today, we're implementing new training programs across all Grand Plaza properties. Every employee, from housekeeping to management, will participate. We'll revise all materials to emphasize that guest treatment must never be based on appearance, race, or perceived wealth." The general manager nodded eagerly. "We'll begin immediately, sir." "Good. And one more thing," Anthony continued. "For the next 6 months, I want mystery guests from diverse backgrounds to visit each of our properties. They'll report directly to me about their experiences." Vanessa raised her hand tentatively. "Mr. Johnson? Will I be fired?" Anthony considered her. "Do you want to be part of the solution, Vanessa?" "Yes, sir. I do." "Then no. Instead, I'd like you to help develop the new training program. Your experience yesterday can become a powerful teaching moment for others." As the meeting concluded, Anthony felt cautiously optimistic. Real change wouldn't happen overnight, but it would happen. He'd make sure of it. News of what happened spread quickly through the hotel. By lunchtime, most employees had heard some version of the story. Many expected Vanessa to be fired on the spot. Instead, they were surprised to learn she would be helping develop new training programs. In the hotel's employee cafeteria, opinions were divided. "If I'd treated the CEO like that, I'd be clearing out my locker," said one of the bellhops, shaking his head. "That's the point though, isn't it?" replied a housekeeper. "We shouldn't treat anyone that way, CEO or not." Anthony purposely ate lunch in the employee cafeteria that day. He sat with the maintenance staff, listening to their stories and concerns. Many had experienced similar prejudice themselves, both from guests and occasionally from colleagues. Their candid conversations gave Anthony even more insight into what needed to change. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat alone at a corner table, barely touching her food. The weight of her actions and the unexpected second chance left her feeling both grateful and ashamed. When she finally looked up, she noticed David Chen approaching her table. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Vanessa nodded silently. David sat down with his tray. "You know, when I first started working here 5 years ago, I was overlooked for promotion 3 times. The manager back then told me guests might feel uncomfortable with someone like me in a visible leadership role." Vanessa looked surprised. "That's terrible. What did you do?" "I worked twice as hard as everyone else. When new management came in, they noticed." He paused. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel better about yesterday. I'm telling you because change is possible, but it takes real work and honest reflection." Across the cafeteria, Anthony observed their conversation. He pulled out his phone and made some notes for the upcoming company-wide initiative. That afternoon, Anthony met with a diverse group of employees from different departments and levels. None of the managers were present, creating a space where people could speak freely. He listened more than he spoke, jotting down ideas and concerns. "Security always follows me when I deliver room service to the executive floors," one young black server admitted. "But they never follow my white coworkers. Some guests refuse to let me clean their rooms," added a housekeeper with a heavy accent. "They request someone who speaks better English, even though I understand everything perfectly." Anthony heard story after story that confirmed his suspicions. The discrimination Vanessa had shown wasn't an isolated incident but part of a pattern that affected both guests and staff. By the end of the day, Anthony had compiled a comprehensive list of issues that needed addressing. The challenges were significant, but he'd built his business by solving difficult problems. That evening, he called his executive team back at headquarters. "We need to expand our plans," he explained. "This isn't just about one hotel or one incident. We're going to transform the entire company culture, starting now." The transformation had begun, but the road ahead would be neither short nor easy. Over the next 2 weeks, Anthony remained at the Grand Plaza Hotel, working from his suite and observing the day-to-day operations. He scheduled regular meetings with department heads and randomly selected employees from all levels. Vanessa, to everyone's surprise, threw herself into developing the new training program. She worked closely with David Chen and a diverse committee of staff members. The experience had shaken her worldview, forcing her to confront biases she hadn't fully acknowledged. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Anthony spotted Vanessa in the lobby, handling a check-in. An older couple in casual clothing approached the front desk, looking tired from travel. Anthony paused by a decorative pillar, watching discreetly. "Welcome to Grand Plaza Hotel," Vanessa greeted them warmly. "How can I help you today?" The man explained they were in town for their grandson's graduation but had left their reservation details at home. They weren't sure if they had the right hotel. The old Vanessa might have been dismissive, Anthony thought. But he watched as she patiently searched different name combinations, found their reservation, and even upgraded their room when she discovered it was their 50th wedding anniversary trip. "Your grandson is lucky to have you both attending his big day," she said, handing them their room keys. "And congratulations on 50 years together. That's truly special." Small changes were happening throughout the hotel. Security no longer followed certain employees or guests. Housekeeping assignments were made fairly. The maintenance requests from all floors received equal priority. On the final day of his stay, Anthony invited the entire management team and Vanessa to his suite. The room was tense with anticipation. "I've spent 2 weeks observing the changes you've begun implementing," Anthony started. "I've spoken with dozens of employees and guests. And I've made some decisions." He pulled out a folder and handed documents to each person. "This is a new company-wide initiative called Equal Dignity. It will be rolled out across all Vision Enterprises properties, starting with Grand Plaza. The program includes revised hiring practices, comprehensive training, anonymous reporting systems, and regular audits by diverse mystery guests." The managers looked both relieved and determined as they reviewed the materials. Additionally, Anthony continued, "We're establishing a scholarship fund for historically excluded groups pursuing careers in hospitality management. And we're creating a new executive position, Chief Inclusion Officer." He turned to David Chen. "David, I'd like to offer you this position, effective immediately. You've demonstrated exceptional leadership these past weeks." David looked stunned. "I'm honored, sir. Thank you." Finally, Anthony addressed Vanessa. "The training program you've helped develop will be implemented across all our properties. Your insights have been valuable." Vanessa nodded, blinking back tears. "Thank you for the opportunity to make things right." "This isn't about making one incident right," Anthony corrected gently. It's about building a better system for everyone. The work is just beginning. As the meeting concluded, Anthony knew this was just one hotel in one city. But change had to start somewhere. And sometimes, it started with an uncomfortable moment that forced people to see the truth. 3 months passed. The Grand Plaza Hotel had undergone significant changes under the new Equal Dignity initiative. Employee turnover decreased, guest satisfaction scores improved, and the hotel was receiving positive media attention for its inclusivity efforts. One morning, Vanessa arrived at work to find an unfamiliar man waiting in the lobby. He wore worn jeans and a simple button-up shirt. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been traveling for hours. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Grand Plaza Hotel. How may I help you today?" she greeted him with genuine warmth. "I need a room for 2 nights, he replied, his voice carrying a slight accent. "I don't have a reservation." "Let me check our availability for you," Vanessa said, typing quickly. "We're quite busy with a conference, but I'll find something suitable." She located a vacant room and began the check-in process, asking for his ID and credit card. When she saw his name, Robert Williams, she paused. It sounded familiar. The man noticed her hesitation. "Is there a problem?" "Not at all, Mr. Williams. I just realized you might be the mystery guest Mr. Johnson mentioned would be visiting this month." Robert smiled slightly. "And what makes you think that?" "Just a feeling," Vanessa replied. "But either way, you're our guest, and we're happy to have you here." She completed the check-in process professionally, arranged for his luggage to be taken up, and provided information about the hotel's amenities without being prompted. That evening, Anthony received an email from Robert Williams, the CEO of a partner company and one of his mystery guests. The report was glowing, particularly about a receptionist named Vanessa. "She treated me with the same respect and attention she gave to the well-dressed business executives checking in before me," Robert wrote. "There was no change in her demeanor when she saw my casual appearance or heard my accent. This is exactly the kind of equal treatment your initiative promised." Anthony smiled as he finished reading the report. He forwarded it to David Chen with a note, "Progress worth celebrating." The following week, Anthony returned to the Grand Plaza for a scheduled visit. The staff had been notified of his arrival this time. When he walked through the doors in his tailored suit, employees greeted him with genuine respect rather than nervous formality. At the management meeting, David presented the latest results of the Equal Dignity initiative. "Complaints about differential treatment are down 87%, he announced. "Employee satisfaction is up 42%. And our hiring pool has become significantly more diverse." Anthony nodded approvingly. "And what challenges remain?" "Old habits die hard," David admitted. "Some long-time employees still struggle with the changes. And a few regular guests have complained about our new standards, by which they mean they can no longer expect preferential treatment based on their appearance or status." "Change is never easy," Anthony acknowledged. "But necessary change is always worth the effort." As the meeting continued, Anthony reflected on how a single uncomfortable incident had sparked a transformation that now affected thousands of employees and guests across all Vision Enterprises properties. Sometimes, meaningful change started with one person being treated poorly, and another person having the power to do something about it. 6 months after the incident, Vision Enterprises hosted its annual leadership conference at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Hotel managers from all 50 properties gathered to share experiences and learn from one another. Vanessa had been invited to speak about her journey. Standing at the podium facing hundreds of hospitality professionals, she felt her heart racing. 6 months ago, I made a terrible mistake, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I judged a guest based on his appearance and race. That guest turned out to be our CEO. The room was silent as she continued. I could have lost my job that day. Instead, Mr. Johnson gave me something more valuable than a paycheck. he gave me the chance to grow and help others grow too. She described how the Equal Dignity initiative had transformed not just her workplace but her perspective on life. She found herself noticing biases in other areas, how she treated people at the grocery store, which neighbors she spoke to, whose opinions she valued. This journey hasn't been comfortable, she admitted. Looking at your own prejudices never is. But it's been necessary. At a table near the front, Anthony listened intently. He had invited several business publications to cover the conference, believing transparency was essential to meaningful change. Later that day, Anthony led a panel discussion with David Chen and several other managers who had successfully implemented the Equal Dignity program at their properties. The most resistance came from employees who insisted they didn't see color or treated everyone the same, one manager explained. We had to help them understand that unconscious bias affects everyone, regardless of intentions. Another manager shared how they had redesigned their hiring process to eliminate opportunities for bias. We removed names and photos from applications, standardized interview questions, and diversified our hiring committees. The quality of our new hires has actually improved because we're considering a broader talent pool. During the Q&A session, a hotel manager from another chain asked Anthony why he hadn't fired Vanessa immediately after the incident. Firing her would have been easy, Anthony replied. It would have made a statement, certainly. But it wouldn't have created change. In business, we often confuse punishment with progress. Real progress comes from transformation, not termination. That evening, the conference hosted a gala dinner. Vanessa found herself seated at a table with several executives, including Anthony. As servers brought the appetizers, one of the executives complimented her on her speech. It's rare to see such honesty in corporate settings, he said. Most people would have been too embarrassed to tell that story. Vanessa smiled. 6 months ago, I would have been. But I've learned that growth starts with owning your mistakes. Anthony raised his glass in a subtle toast to her. In that moment, Vanessa realized how far she had come, from nearly losing her job to helping shape company culture. The incident that could have ended her career had instead transformed it, along with transforming an entire hotel chain and the thousands of guests and employees it served daily. 1 year after the incident, the Grand Plaza Hotel hosted a special event celebrating the success of the Equal Dignity initiative. The lobby was decorated elegantly, with a banner displaying the program's logo, a simple circle containing diverse handprints of all sizes and shades. Local business leaders, community representatives, and media had been invited to learn about the changes implemented across Vision Enterprises properties. The event was also being live-streamed to employees at all 50 hotels. Anthony stood at the podium, surveying the crowded room. When I walked into this hotel 1 year ago in my casual clothes, tired from travel, I never expected to be turned away because of how I looked or the color of my skin. But that experience, uncomfortable as it was, revealed problems that needed addressing. He gestured to David Chen, now a respected executive in the company. Together with our incredible team, we've created lasting change that goes beyond sensitivity training or diversity statements. We've rebuilt systems from the ground up. David joined Anthony at the podium and shared the impressive results: customer complaints down by 93%, employee retention up by 27%, and profits increased by 18% across all properties. But numbers don't tell the whole story, David added. The real success is in the daily interactions that happen thousands of times across our properties, interactions where every person is treated with equal dignity. In the audience, Vanessa sat next to her parents, who had flown in for the occasion. Her mother squeezed her hand proudly as Anthony invited Vanessa to the stage. None of this would have been possible without someone willing to acknowledge a mistake and work tirelessly to make things right, Anthony said as Vanessa approached. Which is why I'm pleased to announce Vanessa's promotion to our corporate training team, where she'll help implement these programs at all new properties we acquire. The audience applauded as Vanessa accepted a plaque commemorating her contribution. She hadn't expected this recognition or the promotion. For the past year, she had simply been doing the work of becoming better, not just as an employee but as a person. "Thank you," she said simply. "This journey has taught me that our worst moments don't have to define us if we're willing to learn and grow from them." After the ceremony, as guests mingled and enjoyed refreshments, an older black couple approached Vanessa. "We watched your story on the news months ago," the woman said. "It inspired our son to speak up about discrimination at his workplace. Because of you, his company has started making changes too." Vanessa was stunned. "I never thought about it affecting people beyond our hotels." "That's how change spreads," the man explained. "One ripple at a time." Later that evening, Anthony found Vanessa on the rooftop terrace, looking out at the city lights. "Congratulations on the promotion," he said, joining her at the railing. "You've earned it." "I keep thinking about how different things could have been," she replied. "If you had reacted with anger instead of seeing an opportunity for change." Anthony nodded. The easy path rarely leads to transformation. For any of us. As they looked out at the glittering city, both reflected on how a single interaction had sparked a movement that continued to grow beyond what either could have imagined. 2 years after the incident, Vision Enterprises had expanded globally, acquiring luxury hotel properties across Europe and Asia. The Equal Dignity Initiative had become a cornerstone of the company's identity and a case study at business schools worldwide. On a crisp autumn morning, Anthony walked through Central Park, deep in thought. A prestigious business magazine had just named him Executive of the Year for transforming his company's culture and setting new standards for the hospitality industry. The feature article highlighted how a personal experience with discrimination had inspired system-wide change. His phone buzzed with a text from David Chen, "Turn on Channel 7 News right now." Anthony found a nearby bench and pulled up the news app on his phone. The headline story featured Vanessa speaking at a congressional hearing on workplace discrimination. 2 years ago, I was the person who discriminated against someone based on appearance and race, she testified, her voice steady and confident. Today, I lead training programs that have helped thousands of employees recognize and overcome their biases. The legislators listened attentively as she outlined the practical steps Vision Enterprises had taken, the revised hiring practices, the anonymous reporting systems, the regular audits by diverse mystery guests. "The most important thing we've learned," she concluded, "is that addressing discrimination isn't just morally right, it's good business. Our customer satisfaction rates have reached record highs. Our employee turnover has dropped to industry-leading lows. And our profitability has increased every quarter since implementation." Anthony smiled as he watched. Vanessa had grown into a powerful advocate, far exceeding his expectations. What began as a difficult moment between them had evolved into a movement affecting entire industries. Later that week, Anthony received an unexpected email from a small boutique hotel owner in rural Georgia. "I saw Ms. Thompson's testimony on C-SPAN. I've been running this 15-room hotel for 30 years, and I've always prided myself on treating everyone the same. But her stories made me realize I've been missing something important. Would your team be willing to help a small operation like mine implement some version of your Equal Dignity program?" Similar requests had been pouring in for months. Anthony forwarded the email to his executive team with a note, "Time to make our resources available to the broader industry." The next day, Vision Enterprises announced the creation of a nonprofit foundation dedicated to helping businesses of all sizes implement equal dignity practices. They would provide free training materials, consulting services, and implementation support to any company committed to the work. At the press conference announcing the foundation, a reporter asked Anthony if he ever regretted not firing Vanessa after the original incident. "That moment could have ended with one person losing their job and nothing else changing," he replied thoughtfully. "Instead, it sparked a transformation that has positively affected millions of people. I don't believe in regrets, I believe in results." As the cameras flashed, Anthony reflected on the extraordinary journey from that morning in the hotel lobby. What had begun as an uncomfortable encounter had grown into something neither of them could have imagined, a movement that continued to expand, transforming not just one company but an entire industry. 5 years after that fateful morning at the Grand Plaza Hotel, Anthony stood in the same lobby where it all began. The space had been renovated, but he could still picture exactly where he had stood that day, tired from travel, dressed in his casual clothes, being judged by a receptionist who saw only his appearance. He was there for a special ceremony. Vision Enterprises had grown into one of the most respected hospitality brands worldwide, known as much for its inclusive culture as for its luxury accommodations. Business schools taught the equal dignity case study to future executives, and other industries had begun adopting similar approaches. Today, the original Grand Plaza Hotel was being renamed. A crowd gathered in the lobby: employees, community members, business leaders, and media. At precisely 10 a.m., Anthony approached the podium. "5 years ago, I walked into this hotel and experienced discrimination firsthand," he began. That uncomfortable moment could have ended with anger and punishment. Instead, it became the catalyst for transformation. He gestured to Vanessa, now a senior vice president of training and development for Vision Enterprises, to join him on stage. None of this would have been possible without someone willing to acknowledge a mistake and commit to making things right, he continued. Ms. Thompson turned what could have been the worst day of her career into the beginning of an extraordinary journey that has positively impacted millions of people. Together, they unveiled the new name, Dignity Plaza. This name reflects not just what happened here, but what continues to happen every day in our properties around the world, Vanessa explained. Equal dignity for every guest, every employee, every person who walks through our doors. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and celebrated, a young hotel management student approached Anthony. "Sir, I've studied your story in all my classes," the student said eagerly. "But there's one thing I still don't understand. Why didn't you just reveal who you were immediately when the receptionist was rude to you? You could have put her in her place right then." Anthony smiled thoughtfully. "Because the goal is never to put someone in their place. The goal is to create a place where everyone belongs." Later that evening, Anthony and Vanessa sat in the hotel restaurant, reflecting on the 5-year journey. "Did you ever imagine it would grow this big?" Vanessa asked, looking around at what their work had created. "I hoped it might change our company," Anthony admitted. "I never expected it would help change an industry. Or that the receptionist who nearly got fired would end up a senior VP," Vanessa added with a smile. "The best leaders aren't those who never make mistakes," Anthony replied. "They're the ones who learn from them and help others do the same." As they looked around the bustling hotel, they saw a diverse staff confidently serving an equally diverse clientele. What had begun as a painful encounter had transformed into something beautiful, a culture where dignity wasn't just a word on a plaque but a living, breathing reality experienced by everyone who entered. Sometimes, the most powerful changes begin with the most uncomfortable moments. And sometimes, the person who makes the mistake becomes the most effective champion for change.